The evacuation of the rebel base located on the frozen landscape of the planet Hoth, though successful for the most part, still came with tragic losses for the rebellion. Not only had Luke Organa been reported as captured by the Empire during the battle, but his sister, Leia Organa, had been injured during her escape with the smuggler Han Solo. It would be Captain Solo who oversaw the safe transport of Leia to the next rebellion holdout, which this time varied from many other of the past locations. Instead of some remote, backwater world where the Empire would never look, the rendezvous point that was arranged was merely an old hyperspace lane that had barely seen any travel dating back to the days of the High Republic. Waiting at this point was the Moncala tactician Admiral Akbar on board the hulking Home 1 cruiser. As the Falcon encroached closer to the vessel, Solo raised transmission with those on board. "This is Captain Solo to the Home 1. We're beginning docking sequence and we have the princess. You're gonna need someone who can look after her. She's pretty banged up."
"We read to Captain Solo. Medical crews are on standby."
Solo motioned to his co-pilot, Chewbacca, to complete the docking sequence as he rose from his seat and moved to prepare Leia. His worry for her well-being only grew as he heard what he could only describe as nonsense and mumbling coming from the young woman. Though he could only make out a couple words, one of them being the name of the Jedi who had trained Leia alongside her brother, Obi-Wan Kenobi, though the other words Solo couldn't draw any connections to and simply tossed it aside, choosing not to waste any time wondering what was going through her mind in a semi-conscious state. It wasn't long before the ramp to the Falcon lowered and a team of medics rushed inside to prep Leia for transfer to the Home 1's medical bay. Solo watched as they took extra care in placing the Jedi on the gurney and rushed her to receive that medical aid. Solo stepped down from the Falcon, and as he watched Leia and her caretakers disappear, he saw General Riken standing towards the end of the hangar, his hand waving in the air as he sought to catch the smuggler's attention. Han navigated his way over. The grim reality of the situation that faced the rebellion was clearly weighing heavy on the minds of both men as Riken spoke. Hoth turned into a much bigger mess than anyone in Alliance Command could admit. I take it you heard what happened with Luke Organa. Riken scanned the face of Solo, and the captain's slight head tilt with his mouth agape let him know that he hadn't, as he explained. It seems as though he was captured in the escape. We've had our spies doing everything they can to find out where they took him, but nothing. Even the Bothans couldn't turn up anything. Solo scratched his head, as disbelief was evident in his stature as he responded to the troubling developments. I mean, what else are we going to do to find the kid? I know an old ISB base that was stationed in Nova Garen that we can use. Maybe we can... Solo was cut off by the general, who realized that Han was taken aback by the move, and explained in a way to ease the tension what was to happen next. Command has agreed there's not much we can do to help Luke. It'd be like trying to find a Mercall in a herd of banthas. They decided the best way to carry on is with the original plan, and I'm hoping you can join us. We'll need the best pilots we can get for this. Solo scanned the hangar of the Home 1, and he only now noticed how many fighters were being prepped and looked over by engineers, signs of a huge operation being set into motion. And what exactly are you all planning, General? General Riken motioned for Captain Solo to follow him as they traversed the halls of the Home 1. Despite the sheer size of the vessel, there wasn't a spot on the capital ship that didn't see some level of activity. It would be on one of these floors where Solo would spot two of the more powerful fixtures in the Alliance, General Madine and Admiral Akbar. Riken inched a few steps ahead of Solo, if only to introduce the smuggler to the men. Gentlemen, this is Captain Han Solo of the Millennium Falcon. He's one of the fight leaders I suggested for the assault, and I think it's high time we key him into what's happening. Madine noted as he turned his attention to Solo, following Riken's suggestion. Captain Solo, there's no point in dancing around the subject. We aim to strike the Empire's greatest weapon, the Death Star. Solo suddenly felt as he was back on Hoth with the coldness he felt to the idea. The Death Star was the reason the planet of Alderaan was now just an asteroid belt, and the reason they had to evacuate Yavin all those months ago. For so long they had been avoiding the weapon, but now it seems it was on purpose, as Madine explained all he could. We've been assembling the resources necessary for this attack since the death of Vader. We knew it had to be done, but we couldn't fathom even the slightest risk of being unprepared. We have the plan for the weapons, and with it, a way to destroy it. We need more than just a few good pilots to help carry out the plan, and that's where you came in. Riken spoke very highly of you, and, as a fellow Corellian, I know you have the heart for it. Before Solo could respond, a medic came barreling down the hallway as he called out for the captain's name. He stopped short of the three, composing himself as he realized that he also stood before three high-ranking Alliance leaders. I deeply apologize for the intrusion, sirs. However, the princess is woken up and refuses medical treatment. She wishes to speak with you, Captain Solo. I'll be there, Solo said as he turned to the Alliance leaders. Whenever you need me, I'll be ready. He saluted as he tugged at the medic to escort him to the ship's medical bay where Leia waited for him. When he stepped inside, he could see that the Jedi was dressed for what appeared to be an excursion when he thought she should be receiving medical treatment instead. Your Highness, what in blazes is going on? You're lucky you're not dunked and backed after that blast back on Hoth. You should at least let these people check up on you. That's not the issue, Solo. I don't have time to be checked up on. There's somewhere I must go, and I need you to take me. Whoa, slow down. We just got here, and we're on the edge of the Outer Rim. Where in the galaxy could you possibly want to go? Dagobah. As soon as Leia said that, Solo remembered. That's the other word she kept repeating to herself after Hoth. So it was a planet, but it was one he had no clue where it was. He relayed that to the princess, and she was quick in her response. I'm certain we can use the navigation system aboard the cruiser to pinpoint where it is, but I need to go there. And what about finding your brother, or staying here and helping the rebellion? They've got a lot going on and could use your help. Leia, who was clearly set in her way, fired back at Han's resentment to ferry her to Dagobah. Who's to say where I'm going won't assist in doing both? Master Obi-Wan says it's where I need to go. And how did a dead man tell you where to go? Leia knew that Han wasn't exactly a believer in the Jedi and their religion. As far as he was concerned, it was more delusions of grandeur than anything else, though it didn't take any Jedi instinct for it to be clear how serious Leia was. Han adjusted himself before explaining to Leia, as delicate as possible, that he couldn't deliver her to Dagobah. 3 of the rebellion's greatest leaders just made the case for him to stay and prepare for their biggest fight yet, but he offered an alternative. I'll see what strings I can pull and get you another ship. And I'll ask Chewie if he'll be willing to pilot for you. That is acceptable. I have a few more things I need to prepare, and then I'll be ready. Leia shuffled past the medical droid whose blank face stared at Solo, who could only offer a shrug in response to the actions of Organa. Solo would be able to honor his word as he secured transport for Leia's journey. The Wookiee Chewbacca, though cautious to leave Han behind, agreed to accompany Leia. The ship provided was an older U-Wing model, one Chewbacca had to get used to as he prepped the ship for takeoff. He awaited as Leia approached, and trudging alongside her was the R2 unit that once belonged to her father. The little astromech with the identifying number R2-D2 beeped as he acknowledged Chewbacca. I'll be needing my astromech if that's okay. He's got the navigational data stored in his memory unit, so we'll be needing that to get to Dagobah. Leia told the Wookiee as he huffed in approval. Han watched as the U-Wing slowly lifted and phased through the blue grid illuminating the hangar door. Its wings then changed position as they extended towards the back of the ship and lurched towards a safe jump point. Inside that ship, Leia called R2 over as she jacked the ship's navigational computer into one of his ports. Alright, R2, let's get going. The droid beeped in excitement as Chewbacca activated the ship's hyperspace drive, and off they were. The towering Wookiee could easily see that a lot was weighing on Leia as their journey began, and offered sentiment as best he could. I appreciate the concern, but I'll be fine. Right now, we need to focus on getting to Dagobah. If what I saw was true, then I stand the greatest chance to finish my training. Leia paused as her mind shifted to her brother, who was somewhere out in the galaxy in the clutches of the Empire again. He had always been the one more eager to fight out of the two, and she knew one day it would harm him just as it did on Ilum. It was different then. At that time, they still had Obi-Wan Kenobi to confide in and look for guidance, as opposed to a disembodied voice telling her to trek halfway across the galaxy to find another old Jedi Master. After an explosion left her jarred during the escape from Hoth, Leia could distinctly hear the voice of her old master call out to her. But in her disoriented state, she couldn't register if this was a true occurrence or not. Though she trusted in the Force, enough so to take what was presented to her with value and embark on this journey. Admittedly, she expected to do so alone, and asking Solo for assistance was a last-minute decision. Even though he couldn't accompany her, she was glad to have Chewbacca with her. There was always something about the Wookiee that made him seem like the perfect companion. Maybe it was his loyalty to the smuggler, but regardless, it was good to have him. The Wookiee let out a huff as he signaled the U-Wing was exiting hyperspace, and Leia reached over to R2 and removed the cables that connected him to the ship's console. "You did good, R2. Get ready. We might have some walking to do when we land." As the U-Wing exited hyperspace and approached the planet, it was almost impossible to find a spot to land. The planet was a thicket of swamps, marsh, and trees that spanned miles and miles. As they searched for a place to land, Leia spied something troubling as she called out for Chewie to take position. "Look, there! It looks like an old Imperial probe droid, but it's been destroyed." Leia wondered if this was the work of a Jedi Master she was to find as the U-Wing settled into the swampy terrain. She stepped down, with the Wookiee Chewbacca and R2-D2 just behind her. No marks were made with a lightsaber. It looks like it was just smashed to pieces. Leia scanned the area, looking for signs of a creature that might be big enough to cause such damage, though the fog emanating from the lake nearby made it harder to do so. Well, there must be something about this world if the Empire sent this here. Let's keep moving. Leia marched on, Chewie and R2 trailing just behind as they navigated the muddy terrain the planet offered. Occasionally, the fauna of Dagobah made itself known as flying creatures glanced by and shadows darted across the tree canopies. R2 let out a collection of sounds to convey his unease as they continued, and Leia did her best to relieve the little astromech of his worries, placing a gentle hand atop his dome. "Maybe it's best if we set up camp here. We'll all get some rest and start searching again after another rotation." Leia swung a pack from her back that was filled with the necessary provisions, even a small charging pack for R2 should he need it. Soon a fire was lit, creating the only warming image this planet might ever see. And just as Leia was about to sit next to R2, she could hear the light sound of footsteps approaching. Chewbacca shot up, roaring a warning to whatever approached as Leia extended a hand, requesting the Wookiee to calm down as she slowly stepped towards the edge of their makeshift camp. She surveyed the darkness, moving her hand left and right to find the source of the footsteps, and before long, they stopped. "Is anybody out there?" Leia called out, but the silence was deafening.
"Travelers to this world. Unusual it is."
Leia snapped her head back as she saw the most peculiar being standing at the base of her campfire. He stood there with a small wooden cane that was dingy with mud and robes that matched.
"And old friends you have brought as well."
Leia watched in astonishment as Chewbacca knelt and appeared to hug the creature, and R2 buzzed in excitement. "You know Chewie and R2? Who exactly are you?" Leia crouched down just before the figure as he spoke.
"I am Yoda. Who might you be?" I asked.
"I'm Leia. Leia Organa."
"Familiar with that name, I am. Knew you, Father. I believe I did."
A feeling of excitement jolted through Leia. "You knew Bail Organa? Forgive me for being so forward, but then you must know who I'm looking for. My master, he..." Leia paused for a moment, remembering what she was about to say wasn't so concrete, but continued. "My master sent me here to find another Jedi Master, and it doesn't seem like much of anyone is here except for..." Leia's mouth slowly opened as Yoda closed his eyes and nodded, seeming to acknowledge that he was who she was searching for.
"Expected this for some time now, I have. Though it concerns me, alone you are."
Leia rose from her crouching position, as it seemed she couldn't escape the seriousness of what happened to her brother. "He was captured by the Empire. We have no clue where he was taken, and I came here because I thought it was the right choice, that finishing my training would make me powerful enough to save him." Yoda could sense a very familiar presence within Leia, one that he found to be a bit troubling, yet he understood, especially given the situation at hand. He slowly walked away from the camp.
"Come, there is something you must see."
Leia fell in line behind Yoda, and she watched in amazement as the dense fog around them slowly parted as they continued. She couldn't quite explain it, but this planet seemed to have a strong connection with the Force, and Yoda had cultivated a relationship with it. The pair had hiked for what seemed like hours before they arrived at the entrance of a cave.
"Enter alone. You will. Face whatever is inside.
Leia analyzed the entrance, taking in the vines that seemed to all reach inside of his entrance. Master Yoda took refuge atop a small stone structure just to the side. Leia then walked in, and the stillness inside was almost too much for her to bear, but she continued. She couldn't see a thing, but whispers began to fill her ears. She snapped her head in the direction that they seemed to be coming from, but there were no structures, be it natural or man-made. Nevertheless, she stepped towards it, but now she could hear a voice coming through the whispers. It was sharp, it was sinister, and it seemed to be mocking her.
So afraid, so alone.
From her early years working under her father, she had grown to recognize that voice. It was that of Palpatine, but she couldn't believe he would actually be here with her. It was impossible, wasn't it?
Your friends have abandoned you. No one will help you. No one will find you.
Leia almost started to run before an apparition of the Emperor stood before her and exclaimed,
I sense great power, Skywalker.
Almost instantly, the apparition of Palpatine faded from existence as Leia's mind scattered at the utterance of that name. At once, the whispers faded, and the exit to the cave before her became clear. She walked out and gathered herself as Yoda could see the young woman grappling with many emotions. That name, Skywalker. Why is it important? Why did he call me that? Leia wanted to turn and face Yoda, but her experience in the cave left her in a state of shock.
In that name, your true lineage is. The daughter of a once great Jedi, you are.
Leia's shock only grew more, and she now grappled with a new truth. Yoda stepped down from his perch and realized the time Leia needed to process this information as he offered one last sentiment.
Mistaken to keep the truth from you, we were. Some time alone you must take. Soon your training you will finish.
As Yoda left for a moment, Leia only watched as the old Jedi hobbled away. She now has a new legacy she must unpack and uphold, as she has learned the truth. Leia Organa is the daughter of Skywalker.